The Architecture of Liberty, Cybersyn Unlocked. Intro, Beyond the Hexagon. Welcome to Synapse Daily. You probably remember our previous video, The Ghost of Cybersyn, Chile's 1966 Digital Revolution. In that episode, we explored the futuristic ghost of 1971 Chile, the iconic orange chairs and the revolutionary dream that vanished in the tragic smoke of the 1973 coup. That video was just a glimpse, a brief summary of a much larger story. But after that video, you all asked the same question: how? How did a country with almost no computers build a brain to manage an entire economy? How could 7 simple buttons replace 1 million bureaucrats? What was the mathematical secret hidden behind those hexagonal white walls? Today, we are going much deeper than where we left off. We are no longer just looking at the room from the outside, we are entering the nervous system itself. We are diving into the technical secrets, the CIA's psychological warfare to destroy this room, and the mysterious happiness meters that could have changed democracy forever. This is Project Cybersyn, The Unseen Files. Chapter 1, The Biology of the Machine. Stafford Beer didn't look at factories like buildings. He looked at them like cells. Most governments are built like pyramids. The top gives orders. The bottom obeys. This is slow. This is rigid. Beer hated it. He believed pyramids were for the dead. He wanted a system for the living. He used the viable system model. It wasn't an organization chart. It was a biological map. Your body has System 1, the muscles. They act on their own. Your brain doesn't tell your heart to beat. It just happens. In Chile, the factories were the muscles. Beer's radical idea? Total autonomy. He wanted the workers to solve their own problems. The central brain in Santiago only watched 4 pain signals. He called these algedonic loops algos for pain. Edone for pleasure. If a coal mine was failing, the room didn't send a boss. It sent a signal. It asked the workers, "Can you fix this?" This was the first time a state was designed to trust its people through data. It wasn't a pyramid. It was a body. And it was alive. Chapter 2, Cyberstride, The Algorithm of 1971. The heart of the project was a software called Cyberstride. Chile only had one powerful computer. An IBM 36050. It was a giant, spinning tape beast. But the math inside was pure genius. Beer used Bayesian probability. In 1971, most managers looked at the past. They looked at last month's coal production. That is like driving a car while looking in the rearview mirror. You will crash. Cyberstride looked at the future. The algorithm didn't just record numbers. It calculated tendencies. It looked at a small drop in sugar production and ran 1,000 simulations. It asked, is this a random glitch? Or is this the start of a famine? It filtered out the noise. It gave the government intelligence, not just information. It was a primitive AI, built before the term existed. It was the ancestor of the algorithms that run Amazon today. But back then, it wasn't trying to sell you a book. It was trying to keep a nation fed. Chapter 3, The Psychology of the Orange Chairs. Look at the ops room again. Why no desks? Why no paper? Stafford Beer was a master of cognitive ergonomics. He knew that paper was a trap. Paper meant bureaucracy. Paper meant slow. He designed the room to force humans to talk. 7 chairs. 7 is the magic number. It is the limit of the human brain's immediate processing. Any more, and you have a crowd. Any less, and you have a vacuum. The buttons on the chairs were the key. There were no keyboards. Beer believed keyboards were filters. They were for typists, not for thinkers. He wanted a direct link between the human finger and the national data. The charts on the walls were Gestalt designs. No complex spreadsheets. Just moving bars. Just colors. Red for crisis. Green for health. The room was designed to reduce cognitive load. It was built so a worker from a copper mine could sit down and understand the entire country in 10 seconds. It was a design for equality. It was a high-tech weapon against elitism. Chapter 4, The Cyberfolk Experiment, Quantifying the Soul. The Secret Files, Happiness Meters and Real-Time Democracy. Stafford Beer had a radical, almost dangerous fear. He believed that traditional democracy was statistically dead. To him, voting once every 4 years was like trying to understand a movie by looking at a single frame every hour. It was a low-frequency signal that allowed politicians to lie, hide, and ignore the people. He wanted to solve this with a project that the world had never seen, Cyberfolk. Imagine a small, handcrafted wooden box. It looks humble, almost like a piece of 1970s furniture. But inside, it was a revolution. This was the happiness meter. Beer's plan was to install one of these boxes in every home across Chile. It had a single, smooth analog dial. One side meant I am miserable / the state is failing, and the other side meant I am flourishing / life is good. This wasn't a spy tool. It didn't record your name or your address. Beer was obsessed with anonymity. He used a mathematical concept called algorithmic aggregation. The signals from these thousands of boxes would travel through the existing electrical power lines, a brilliant hack using the grid as a data network. These pulses would flow into the ops room in Santiago, where they would be combined into a single, massive needle on a glowing meter, the National Happiness Index. Imagine President Allende sitting in his orange chair, looking at that needle. If he passed a decree on bread prices and the needle suddenly swung toward pain, he would know instantly. Not in 4 years. Not in a month. Right now. It was the world's first real-time feedback loop between a leader and the people. Beer called it individual liberty through systems science. But this is where the tragedy begins. The CIA monitored the Cyberfolk plans with growing horror. They didn't see a democracy tool, they saw a mind control machine. They used their media assets to spread a terrifying rumor: Allende is putting a brainwashing device in your living room. They turned Beer's dream of a listening state into a nightmare of a monitoring state. The project was so ahead of its time that people didn't have the language to understand it, and the CIA used that confusion as a weapon to poison the Chilean soul. Chapter 5, Project FUBELT, The War on the Brain. In Washington, D.C., Richard Nixon didn't just fear socialism. He feared efficient socialism. A socialist state with a digital brain was a nightmare for the White House. If it worked, it would prove that you didn't need a free market to run a modern nation. The CIA launched Project FUBELT. It was a total psychological war. They didn't just want to stop the factories, they wanted to poison the project's reputation. They leaked stories to the press. They called the ops room a totalitarian computer. They twisted Beer's happiness meter and told the public it was a mind control device. They portrayed Stafford Beer as a Rasputin-like figure, a foreign techno-warlock whispering in the president's ear. They attacked the credibility of the data. If people didn't trust the machine would die. It was the birth of fake news used as a weapon against a network. The CIA understood something Beer didn't: a system is only as strong as the people's belief in it. Chapter 6, The October Crisis, The Day the Math Fought Back. A technical post-mortem of the 1972 blockade. October 1972 was the moment Project Cybersyn stopped being a dream and became a shield. The CIA had funneled millions of dollars into the National Confederation of Truckers. 40,000 trucks stopped. The veins of the country were cut. No food, no fuel, no medicine. The plan was to starve the government into a collapse. But inside the hexagonal room, the atmosphere was electric. Stafford Beer and his young team of Chilean engineers didn't panic. They turned to linear programming and heuristic search algorithms. While the streets were blocked, the Telex machines were screaming. They were receiving 2,000 messages a day from loyalists, small farmers, and factory workers. This was the Telex Miracle. The team used the IBM 36050 computer to create a dynamic optimization model. They map every single working vehicle left in the country. They used the computer to solve a massive logistical puzzle. How do we do the work of 40,000 trucks with only 200? The room became a high-tech chessboard. They identified essential corridors. If a road was blocked, the computer suggested a dirt path through a farm. If a city ran out of milk, the system found a surplus in a neighboring province and diverted a loyalist van in real time. The telexes were the nerves, and the ops room was the brain. For 24 days, the invisible blockade battled the visible network. The math won. The government survived because the Cybersyn team had more requisite variety than the strikers. They were faster, smarter, and more efficient than the chaos. It was the first time in human history that a digital network defeated a physical siege. It proved that in the age of information, the one who maps the system controls the system. But this victory made them a target. The world's powers realized that this electronic brain was too effective to be allowed to exist. Chapter 7: The Variety Trap. Stafford Beer had a favorite rule, Ashby's law of requisite variety. It sounds complex, but it's simple. Only variety can absorb variety. Think of it like chess. If your opponent knows 1,000 moves and you only know 10, you lose. To survive, your system must be as complex as the world it lives in. The Chilean government was a low-variety system. It was slow. The world was high variety. It was chaotic. Cybersyn was the tool to bridge that gap. It was designed to filter the world's chaos and give the president the requisite variety to fight back. But Beer made a mistake. He forgot that the military was also a system. And the military was hiding its variety. The generals were planning a move that the Telex machines couldn't see. The computer was looking at coal and flour, but it wasn't looking at the shadows in the barracks. Chapter 8: The Psychedelic Scientist. To understand why the project felt so alien, you have to understand Stafford Beer's life in Santiago. He wasn't a boring bureaucrat. He was a radical. He worked in his hotel room, barefoot, surrounded by diagrams and bottles of wine. He practiced tantric yoga. He wrote poetry about the soul of the machine. He believed that Cybersyn was a spiritual project, a way to connect the collective consciousness of the Chilean people. He often invited the factory workers into the palace. He wanted them to touch the machines. He believed Th. Chapter 9: The Final Algorithm, Survival Mode. By mid-1973, the project wasn't about growth anymore. It was about System 3, survival. Inflation was 300%. The black market was everywhere. The Cybersyn team tried one last, desperate move. They created a daily economic survival dashboard. Every day, the telexes would report on exactly 3 things: bread, oil, and meat. The computer was no longer a brain, it was a life support system. The engineers in the ops room were no longer scientists, they were firefighters. They used the Cyberstride software to predict which neighborhoods would starve first. They moved flour like it was ammunition. But there was a fatal flaw. The VSM model assumes that the muscles, the factories, want to talk to the brain. But the military had already severed the nerves. The data coming in was becoming corrupted. The requisite variety of the chaos was finally overwhelming the machine. Chapter 10: The Death of the Interface. September 11, 1973. The jets are in the air. Inside the government annex, the Telex machines start to chatter. But they aren't sending factory numbers. They are sending frantic text: tanks in the street, the palace is on fire, goodbye. The Cybersyn team didn't run. They waited. When Pinochet's soldiers entered the ops room, they didn't see a miracle of management. They saw a threat. They saw a room that looked like a foreign spy center. They saw the happiness meters and thought they were listening devices. The soldiers executed the room. They smashed the screens. They ripped the geometric buttons out of the orange chairs with bayonets. They didn't just turn off the computer, they tried to murder the idea. The software tapes, the years of Bayesian code, were thrown into the street. The future was unmade in an afternoon. Stafford Beer's architecture of liberty was replaced by a hierarchy of fear. Chapter 11: The Exile of the Prophet. Stafford Beer fled to London. He was a broken man. He felt that his cybernetic state had been too soft. He realized that a system built on trust cannot survive a system built on lead. He moved to a small cottage in Wales. No phone. No computer. He became a hermit. He spent the rest of his life warning the world, the purpose of a system is what it does. Posewood. He told anyone who would listen, if a system produces poverty, its purpose is poverty. If it produces surveillance, its purpose is surveillance. He watched as his dreams of cyberfolk were twisted by corporations into the algorithms of addiction we see today. Chapter 12: The Algorithmic Ghost, the Nightmare Reboot. From socialist utopias to the addiction economy. Today, Project Cybersyn is dead, but its ghost is the most powerful force on Earth. If Stafford Beer walked into a modern Amazon fulfillment center or a Silicon Valley headquarters, he would recognize the architecture instantly. The real-time tracking, the predictive analytics, the algorithmic signals of customer satisfaction, it's all there. But there is a dark, twisted irony in how it's being used. Beer designed Cybersyn to distribute power. He wanted the factory worker to be the master of the data. He wanted the happiness meter to hold the government accountable. He built the system to maximize autonomy. But look at our world now. We have happiness meters in our pockets, we call them likes, hearts, and 5-star ratings. But they don't hold the powerful accountable. Instead, they are used to harvest our data. The feedback loop has been reversed. In 1971, the system listened to the people to serve them. In 2026, the system listens to the people to sell them. The Bayesian forecasting that Beer used to prevent famines is now used by hedge funds to trigger market crashes for profit. The ops room isn't a hexagonal sanctuary for democracy anymore, it's a hidden server farm owned by $1 trillion corporation. We are all living inside a global cybersyn, but the orange chairs are empty. Or worse, they are occupied by algorithms that don't care about human pain or pleasure, only about engagement and retention. Stafford Beer's ultimate warning was a concept called Posewood. The purpose of a system is what it does. He argued that you shouldn't listen to what a system claims to do, you must look at what it actually produces. If our modern digital systems produce anxiety, polarization, and surveillance, then according to Beer, that is their intended purpose. The Ghost of Cybersyn is a mirror. It shows us that technology is never neutral. It can be the architecture of liberty, or it can be the digital panopticon. The choice was made in 1973 with a coup, and we are still living with the consequences of that choice every time we unlock our screens. Chapter 13: The Great Avenue. As we close this deep dive, remember Salvador Allende's last words: history is ours, and people make history. Project Cybersyn was a reminder that another world was possible. A world where computers don't watch you, but help you. A world where efficiency doesn't mean exploitation. The hexagonal room is gone. The orange chairs are dust. But the code, the dream of a digital nervous system for the common man, is still out there, waiting for someone brave enough to reboot it. This has been Synapse Daily. Keep your feedback loops open.